Hi, this is Eddie Hearn, and you're watching Lights Out.
Oleksandr Usyk makes history. For the first time in 25 years, the heavyweight division has an undisputed heavyweight champion. Oleksandr Usyk is now not only the heavyweight undisputed champion, but he's now a two-weight undisputed champion. He defeated Tyson Fury last weekend in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Can't believe I'm saying that, but hey ho, it's done. History has been made. We have an undisputed heavyweight champion. There'll also be quite a bit to talk about in terms of the fight itself, and of course, we'll cover the main undercard action. This is Faisal Khan for Lights Out, proudly sponsored by Spartans Law. And this is podcast 78 of the Lights Out Boxing podcast. And with me, as always, I'm delighted by the man that considers himself as the face of Lights Out Boxing, Mr. Mohsin Gulshir, aka Ron. Ron, big smile on your face. Must have had a good weekend. How you doing, mate?
Well, much better than yours. And I'm thinking, has that settled in yet with Klopp leaving? It must have been a terrible weekend for you. I can't imagine,
Listen,
I was going to come over with some flowers and just put an arm around you. I mean, your boy Tyson Fury, what happened on Saturday night, and Sunday didn't get any better.
Apart from Asif's, my former club, Sunday League, winning 2 trophies, it was which I'm over the moon about for my former team, Luton Phoenix. Shout out to Luton Phoenix, and of course, shout out to Asif. He finally wins his first 2 trophies as manager, which something 2 trophies in 3 days. Fuck me, they're coming like buses. But shout out to Luton Phoenix. But yeah, right, you're on. It was a pretty sad weekend. I mean, not only did I have to deal with Jurgen Klopp managing his last game, as I just said to you, the unthinkable happened. The guy that I said will never lose a fight lost a fight, and it was the biggest fight of his career. But this is done now. We're obviously going to talk about it. There's lots to discuss, but we start off the podcast as always with your quick fire question. So come on, Ron, try put a smile on my face and try and drag me from the barrels of depression.
Well, as we were awaiting the results, I think everyone was thinking, please do not let, in my opinion, I think, the right decision was made. Usyk was the winner, but I would have been destroyed and just would have lost faith in boxing if it was a draw. We've seen it before when Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis fought, and it was a controversial draw. They didn't want anyone else, non-American, to be having that title. So, but let's just say let's just say it was a draw. Should boxing do away with draws and instead do another 13th round to decide the winner? Because I know there was an event that I saw, bare knuckle boxing or bare knuckle fighting. I can't remember what it was called. It's an octagon kind of or some sort of shape, and they were both drawn, and they had the championship round. Do you think that could be introduced into boxing? Well, would you be in favour of it? Let me put it that way.
You've discussed this before about a potential sudden death penalty shootout.
But for championship fights like that, you don't want it to be a draw because that favours no one.
Do you know what, Ron? We shouldn't be in that position to have incompetent judges that lead us to controversy decisions. So, ideally, no, you don't want that. But when there's a lot of controversy surrounding fights and there's a lot of controversial draws, it probably is a good, answer to have. But however, I just think that these judges, they've been doing it for a long time. Yes, it's not easy to judge a fight, but they have the experience of judging fights. So I'm 50-50 with it. I still think maybe before perhaps moving on to a 13th round, we should have 5 judges instead of 3. And I remember me and you many years ago went to visit Badu Jack, and we spoke to his trainer, Amir Abdallah, and this was just after he fought Adonis Stevenson, and we asked him about what would you do to improve boxing, and I fully agree with him in terms of judging. So I would have 5 judges instead of 3 judges, but there's so many avenues you can go down. There's so many routes you can take. But the 13th round is something that I think should be looked at. What do you think?
I mean, look, back in the day, they used to fight for 15 rounds, and then they used to have a winner. I like the idea. It just gives it something. It makes it a lot more interesting, and it's more of a high stakes kind of finish to it all as well, where both fighters know they need to leave it all out there, because otherwise they're not, getting their hand raised at the end of the contest. So, but that needs to be done efficiently, quickly, before we get to the 12th round, before the ending. They need to know, okay, you're both level here. We're going to have a 13th round. I think that needs to be made clear to the fighters, but only in special circumstances, like, the undisputed fight. I would have been disappointed if that ended in a draw, because the likelihood is that one of the belts will not be up for grabs when and if they have a rematch, because I think the IBF is desperately trying to, is trying to make what's his name, Hergovich, mandatory for that. So I was glad that we've got an out and out undisputed champion.
We do have an undisputed champion, and it is Oleksandr Usyk, and he is the first heavyweight undisputed champion in 25 years since Lennox Lewis. The fight wasn't scored as a draw. In the end, it was a split decision, 115 to 112, 114 to 113 Usyk, and 114 to 113 Tyson Fury. Before we talk about the decision, we'll talk about the fight. And listen, great fight. I did not expect it to be that good. I thought we're getting technically two great fighters. I thought we were going to get a chess match, and it was a chess match at times. But as you saw throughout the fight, heavy shots were landed. There was a knockdown during the fight. The fight at one point was going towards Fury's way. It was going towards Usyk's way. It was a very good fight. And listen, I think it's fair to say it was worth the 25-year wait of an undisputed heavyweight fight. However, Oleksandr Usyk did come out on top. He is now the undisputed heavyweight champion. And Ron, you're going to ask me to sum up the fight. Now, I've got that fight down as two halves. I thought Tyson dominated the early first few rounds. I had him winning round 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, I had him that comfortably leading the fight. And I was discussing this with Idnan and the boys on a WhatsApp group, and Sean and HF were saying that Usyk seems to be tiring, and my exact words were, Usyk gets better as the fight goes on. We saw it against Joshua in the 2 fights in the championship rounds. And I think after round 7, the guy did not look back. I believe he broke Fury's nose. That played a massive factor. And then after that, it was just complete one-way traffic. You got to give credit to Tyson Fury for even surviving that 9th round. And I just think that that second part of the fight shows just how good of an athlete Oleksandr Usyk actually is. What did you make of the fight, Ron? I mean, was it a fight that did you believe that it delivered? Did you believe that it was worth the wait for 25 years to get an undisputed heavyweight title fight? And secondly, what did you make of Usyk's sort of late barrage, coming back from, practically being behind on the scorecards and still doing what he did?
Mm-hmm. First of all, I loved the fight. I actually thought you can see there was 2 quality fighters there. They were cancelling each other out. Both of them known for their boxing IQs, amazing footwork. Fury was using his elusive tactics. He was doing a bit of ringmanship or showmanship. Do you think? I mean, I was going to ask you if you thought, did that detract from his good work?
No. Listen,
because where he could have been putting his foot down and really gonna go landing more decisive punches, he was using it to kind of goad him. But I mean, that's something I heard one of the analysts say. Earlier rounds, yes, they were very close rounds.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it really was very subjective on who you thought was doing the better work. But what I loved about Usyk was he was always on the front foot. He was, I mean, you had Tyson Fury kind of, which he was always going to do. You use that long jab of his. I would like to have seen him use a bit more of it to kind of control the fight. But Usyk was really kind of pressing the fight. I think that probably got more points from the judges. Like you put it there perfectly, it was a lot of back and forth. You know, like the momentum was shifting. I mean, the middle round where Usyk was taking control. I remember my WhatsApp conversation with friends where I was like, God, you know, Fury is gonna, you know, he's controlling this. He's looking good, but then Usyk, you know, write him off at your, you know, at your peril, because he did that against Anthony Joshua in that second fight where we wrote him thinking, oh, Joshua's got this. It's kind of that false pretense that he lets you think, oh yeah, you know, he's not delivering or he's not in the fight, but Usyk and his combinations that he produced in that 9th round, gosh, I mean, we've seen Fury in trouble against Deontay Wilder. We get that, but like that, I don't think we've seen it on that same kind of level where he was on his feet. He was being chased across the ring and, you know, in the corner. You know, there were some complaints that the referee could have stopped it. But he gave him a standing count, didn't he, at the end? And that timing of that knockdown was crucial. Because if it had been a minute left, I honestly couldn't see how Fury survived that round. And you know, we know with Fury in the past has shown remarkable kind of recovery after kind of suffering from heavy knockdowns. You know, I was thinking, God, he needs that minute to kind of recuperate and get his shit together. And he took a round off. You know, that, I mean, look, if we're talking about margins here, that knockdown was the difference. You know, in that could have been a draw otherwise. So, but take nothing away. I think Usyk was fantastic from the off. He deserved to win that fight. I think if you look at the stats as well, he landed more. He was a lot more accurate. Fury obviously broke his nose, which I can't remember which round it was, but it looked horrible.
It was the round before the knockout.
Fury was probably struggling, you know, so he was kept on touching his nose throughout that fight. And as we know, with speaking to boxers, that, you know, if you break your nose, it has an impact on your breathing. And someone like with the high octane, like someone like Usyk, who's kept on coming forward, you know. And another thing as well, on what I've kind of noticed, I picked up in between the rounds where, you know, his corner were talking to him. In my opinion, I think there's too many cooks in the kitchen there in Tyson Fury's corner. You've got John Fury, you've got Andy Lee, you've got Sugar Hill. You know, it's too many voices. I think, you know, Sugar Hill should have been the one that should have said, look, I mean, I didn't overhear Andy Lee, but I did hear a lot of kind of John Fury. And John Fury is, you know, a very vocal man. And I think he needed that period of calmness, needed that bit of guidance. This is what you need to do, rather than all people shouting at him. And maybe the advice was, I don't know if you've overheard what they were saying, that, oh, you're comfortable, you know, you just need to see it out. Maybe that was the wrong sort of advice that he was being given. Because, you know, if you remember at the end of the fight, Fury thought he'd won the fight. He thought he'd been hard done by. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts on that, about his corner and what happened there.
Well, firstly, Ron, I thought you summed it up brilliantly. And the points that you just made, especially with too many cooks in the kitchen, was a point I was going to elaborate on myself. But I'm going to discuss Tyson Fury's game plan. Now, since Tyson Fury has defeated Vladimir Klitschko, he's fought Sefer Seferi, Pianetta, Deontay Wilder 1, 2, Deontay Wilder 1, then Tom Schwartz, then Otto Wallin, then Deontay Wilder 3, and then obviously Dillian White, Derek Chisora, Francis Ngannou. Now, I would say 30% of those fights he's fought on the back foot. Now, one of the most impressive things about the relationship between Sugar Hill and Tyson Fury has been that how aggressive he's made Fury and how more of a front foot fighter he's made him. Now, I watched the fight back and I just think Tyson Fury's game plan was wrong. Because when you fight a fighter like Usyk, who's not only just a natural fighter, he's a boxer, he's an athlete, he's a mover. If you're going to sit on the back foot against Oleksandr Usyk and look to technically beat him, you're not going to win. Anthony Joshua did it in his first fight, had no success whatsoever. Second fight, fought a bit more on the front foot, but Usyk had him sussed out. Now, I know people will say that before the knockdown, Tyson Fury was winning the fight. Yes, he was. But if you look back at Usyk's last few performances, especially in the later stages of the fight, he gets better as the time goes on. I don't feel as if Tyson Fury was aggressive enough. I don't feel as if he was on the front foot enough. And there was a moment, I believe, in round 6 when he really troubled Usyk with an uppercut. And I actually jumped up saying, finish him. But he didn't. He allowed Usyk off, and he done it on a few occasions. And Eddie Hearn said after the fight that if there is a rematch, he's got to mix it up. He's got to be aggressive, and he's got to be more on the front foot, because as good as technically Tyson Fury is, right? That Tyson Fury that fought that fought Vladimir Klitschko is gone. You're not going to get that Tyson Fury anymore. Yes, technically he's still a good fighter, but this version of Tyson Fury that we've seen from Deontay Wilder 2 onwards is the best version of Tyson Fury I've seen throughout his career. And I just felt as if that the game plan was wrong. Now, in terms of what you said about too many cooks in the kitchen, I saw this happening because when I saw John Fury, who had a huge part to play in what went down during fight week, when I saw that John Fury was getting more active involved in the training camp, and I saw more clips of Andy Lee, I thought to myself, and this was weeks ago, this was after the postponement of the original date, I looked at it and I thought to myself, no, there's something not right here. Whenever you've seen a build-up to Tyson Fury during his time with Sugar Hill, it's always been Sugar Hill in the training camp. It's always been one guy in the ring unless it's a sparring partner. So I 100% agree with you on having too many cooks in the kitchen. I mean, I think it was a final round where someone said to him that you need to win this round and you win the fight. That's absolute nonsense. That's one thing I wouldn't say to a fighter. You ask me if I'm coaching or training somebody, I wouldn't tell him that they're one round away from winning. It's something I wouldn't do. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you fight a fight to win every round and win as many rounds as possible. I just thought there was too many voices in the corner. I just thought there's too many people involved in the camp. And now I really worry for Tyson Fury because this defeat is going to hit him hard. Listen, performance-wise, I thought he performed exceptionally well. However, I still felt as if he fought the wrong fight. He did not use his height as an advantage. He did not use his power as an advantage. He didn't rough Usyk up. He didn't lean on him the way I thought he would. And it just was the wrong game plan, in my opinion. You can say, oh, but look, the guy only lost by a few rounds, or he was winning the fight. It doesn't matter. When you fight a guy like Usyk, you need to take the fight to Usyk. You do not fight on the back foot. And that's what we learned with Anthony Joshua. And now you're going to ask me, do I think is there going to be a rematch? No. I think Tyson Fury will retire now. I don't want him to retire. Do I think he can beat Oleksandr Usyk? Absolutely. When we saw him beating Oleksandr Usyk for 7 rounds, Usyk did have a bit of success, but did he really trouble Tyson Fury from round 1 to 7? I don't think he did. But I just feel as if that he said it himself in his press conference, Tyson Fury. He goes, I'm 35, 36 years old now. That for me is his way of saying, what else have I got to prove? And I just feel as if that defeat is going to be very damaging to Tyson Fury. You know, does he fancy being the hunter now rather than the hunted? I think he's made a lot of money. I think he's had a very good career. This is not me saying he has to retire. I just think he will retire. And I don't think we get the rematch. I'd love to see the rematch. I mean, if Tyson Fury wins the rematch, I'd love to see a third fight. But I just think that defeat is going to be too much for him, and I think he sails off into the sunset. And do you know what, right? I hope Oleksandr Usyk does exactly the same. 2-weight undisputed world champion, Olympic gold medalist, you know, had a lucrative career, phenomenal career. He's made history. He should also sail off into the sunset if Tyson does as well, because I don't believe there's any heavyweight right now that there's a match for him. Do you think Tyson Fury wants to rematch? Do you think he takes a rematch?
He's a proud man. You know, he's a gypsy. You know, he's a
yeah,
fighting
Ron,
man.
I'm going to stop you there, though, Ron.
Okay.
At 35 years of age, does Tyson Fury want to become the hunter again? That's what you've got to ask yourself. I know you say he's a proud man. I know you say that, you know, he's a gypsy. But let's rewind back to the first fight with Deontay Wilder. He fought Deontay Wilder, the first fight, in December 2018. The rematch happened February 2020. And whatever trials and tribulations they went through, whatever politics they were behind, that was a guy that was looking to fight a guy who'd been robbed of a victory. Now this is a guy that's been beaten. So just put it into context. Do you think that there's enough in the gas tank to want to have a rematch at this stage of his career? You've also mentioned ring and inactivity as well.
Yeah, I mean, you've read out that list of names and of people that he's fought. I mean, he's had some brutal kind of fights as well. You know, there's going to be thinking how much, mileage has he got on the clock, and he's been an excellent, servant to sport. You know, been a pleasure to watch him and perform. And I hope this isn't the last we've seen of Fury. I generally hope that he can. I mean, maybe this is wishful thinking, but I hope he can come back and do that rematch and, prove some naysayers wrong, about him. There's a couple of things that he needs to address. Maybe we mentioned about his corner, like what's going on there. The actual kind of plan, the fight plan, or the tactics. That second half of the fight, kind of Usyk coming back really strongly, which we know he's going to do. That's not going to change. And remember, Usyk is 37 years of age. He's older than Fury.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly age is not slowing him down.
Yeah, but Usyk's a very active fighter,
that Fury should. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, his last fight was Daniel Dubois. How long ago was that? But that's because of postponement. But he kept himself kind of ticking over. So he eats, breathes. He lives in a gym. That's a Usyk. That's the Eastern European mentality. And he's got good company in people like Lomachenko, his close friend as well. I don't know. I think I'd like to see Tyson Fury again in that rematch, because if he doesn't take this rematch, there's a lot of money riding on this. That let's not kid ourselves. This is a lot of money you're walking away from. Do you know what the figures were? What Fury would have made from that fight?
I believe he made something like 40+ million. I'm not too sure what the figures are, Ron. I know he got paid. And he got paid. But Ron, do you want another point I want to put across to you, right? And this isn't, just based on this fight.
Let me just put the light on, yeah?
Go for it. Go for it. Ron's just going to take a quick break. That'll be coming out of his wages. There's another point I want to make to you, Ron. I think the punch resistance has gone as well. And I think he gets hit far too easy, especially at this stage of his career. He got hit way too much against Francis Ngannou. And he got the second half of the fight against Usyk, he was an easy target. And I don't know if you're going to agree, but I think the punch resistance has gone as well.
I mean, it happens with age, man. You're not as quick and as elusive as he was. I mean, there were moments where he was kind of clowning around in the corner. Who was it against? Was it Stefan Schwartz that he was doing that infamous scene
Schwartz,
where he's,
yeah,
it was Schwartz, wasn't it? And I was like, no, not against Usyk, not against the pound for pound king. Now we know he, we've got an argument that he is the number one pound for pound. Like, this wasn't the fight that you do it. This, but he was saying that he's enjoying himself, so fine, let him be, let him do what he's going to do.
Listen, he's a showman.
He's a showman. And I'm not going to take it away from him. So, but time and place, I guess. You've got to look at your opposition, who you're facing. This is levels. But I think we're talking a lot about Fury. I think we need to kind of start the conversation about how good Usyk is. And my question to you, as a boxing fanatic, where does he rank in the all-time greats of boxing? In that boxing Hall of Fame, if we were to put him up with the Foremans and the Alis and the Lennox Lewises, this is someone who's done an incredible feat. Olympic champion, world champion, cruiserweight undisputed, heavyweight undisputed. Like, what next? What else does he need to do? And can we put him in that conversation as one of the all-time greats?
Well, obviously, before I give you my thoughts on that, I hope Tyson takes the rematch. I just can't see it happening, and I've obviously given you my reasons why.
Yep.
In terms of where do we rank Usyk in terms of all-time greats, he's up there. You got to look back, right? Your Holyfields, your Lewises, your Alis, your Tysons, your Riddick Bows, Liston's, Frazier's, Foreman's,
Tyson. Yeah, you can go. You can carry on. Yep.
Joshua's, Klitschko's. They all lost. This man's never lost. I mean,
And he's beaten Britain's UK. I mean, the English is two best 1 and 2.
and bear in mind, Ron, right? This is a guy that won the Olympics 12 years ago. I mean, he started off a bit late, if you think about it. And this is a guy that's been in the heavyweight world now for a couple of years. Where do I rank him? He's up there. I think right now, I mean, if he was to retire, I think you've got to consider him as probably one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. He's beaten everybody. I mean, if he retired tomorrow, I don't want to hear nobody turn around and say, "Oh, but he didn't beat Deontay Wilder. He didn't beat Joseph." No, he's beaten the best heavyweights. He's beaten the one heavy. He's beaten the one heavyweight that I thought was incapable of getting beat. You know, I would never, in a million years, bet against Tyson Fury, especially with how good he's been over the last few years since he's come back into boxing. Right, we had that performance against Ngannou. It happens, but I think this guy right now is. You've got to consider him as probably one of the greatest heavyweights of all time because of how good he's looked whilst doing it. And every time, you know, the lights have shined on him, the bigger the occasion, he just gets better and better and better. One thing I love about Usyk is deep into the fight, the guy just, it's like he finds his second win from somewhere. It's like he's found a new lease of life. He just gets better and better. The energy goes up, you know, the adrenaline goes up. I mean, you see, there was I think there's a video of him kissing the Jesus Christ cross in at the end of one of the rounds. I mean, you can't knock this guy. I mean, and if there's a rematch, which I hope to God there is, I think it's the same outcome unless there's a few changes made in Tyson Fury's corner. And when I say changes, basic changes, have one voice rather than three. And revert back to your old ways, and that's become that wrecking machine that you have been the last 3 years throughout your career.
I mean, Usyk fought an incredible fight. You know,
100%. I can't. You take your hats off.
Where the tide was going against him, but he didn't at any point look out on his feet or anything like that, or he's going to get dropped. He got stunned. There was, I think it was round 6. There was a good shot that Fury landed on him, and you know he rocked back a little bit, but he composed himself. He came back into that fight. It was. And all the rounds were close. You know, yes, I agree. You know, but that's a championship fight. That's the two undefeated fighters. That's what we were watching. It was a boxing masterclass. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love it wasn't one-sided. I'm glad it wasn't. But I think, let's just say Usyk, what next for Usyk? I mean, like, does he?
It's either Tyson Fury
doesn't take that rematch. Who does he fight next?
No, he should retire. I don't want to see him fight anybody else now. What? Nobody's going to beat
him. I can't think. I mean, there's the Joshua third.
No, man. No, you see it twice.
I realistically can't see what Joshua does differently this time around. There's no one else in the boxing world that I think could even lace his boots. You know, let alone challenge him. But, you know, hats off to him, you know, incredible performance. His promotional team knew something, you know, they were quietly confident. They didn't need to feel the need to shout and, you know, kind of trade insults like, you know, Fury was doing. So they were just confident in their man. I mean, Alex Krassyuk was, you know, undeniable. He knew what, you know, Usyk would achieve, and he did it.
100%. And listen, congratulations.
I'm looking. Okay, now I'm sure you want to talk about the other fights, but do you put him pound for pound list? Where do you put Usyk?
At the moment, I've got him at number one in my opinion is Crawford. Number 2, joint is Inoue and Usyk.
Wow,
I've got Crawford as number 1, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Unless Crawford loses to Madrimov. We have got quite a bit to talk about because overall I thought it was a good night of boxing, and obviously we'll start off after Fury Usyk. We'll talk about the fellow Brit Anthony Cacacae, who became the new super heavyweight champion by defeating Joe Cordina. phenomenal performance by Anthony Cacace, stopping Joe Cordina midway through the fight, dropping him in round 3. You have to take your hats off to Anthony Cacace, 35 years of age. I know he's captured the IBO, but now he's got the another version of the super heavyweight title. A great, illustrious division run, which we all grew up idolizing. But Anthony Cacace did defeat Joe Cordina. I mean, I remember interviewing Cacace in Birmingham at the start of the year, and he looked confident. I mean, this is a guy that was more or less, it was either win it now or you'll never get close to it at the age of 35 years of age. But Ron, what did you make of Cacace's performance, and what do you feel went wrong for Cordina on the night?
Gosh, I mean, that was a surprise. I mean, I had not really heard of Cacace. I mean, apart from the interview that you did, and I just thought, oh, okay, is he here to just make up the numbers? And I looked at his record. I was like, all right, he's not half bad, but he's not really fought any big names. And he did a real number on Joe Cordina in that fight, which a great performance. The knockdown, the first knockdown was pretty heavy because Cordina landed on his face, didn't he? I mean, like, he collapsed, and I thought the stoppage, was rightly done, I think, by the ref. So, this is, and I love this kind of story. 35 years of age, people are thinking you have no right to winning a world title at that point in your life.
Try to tell that to Bernard Hopkins and George Foreman.
Yeah. What I mean? People write him off and thinking, oh, where have you been through for the rest of your career? But look, I mean, that meant the world to him. You could see, his elation, and he just wants the big fights now. At this point in his career, why not? You've worked your ass off your whole career to get to that point, and he did the unexpected.
Yeah, listen, you can't knock the guy. I mean, what a performance, especially on that stage as well, in terms of the Undisputed Heavyweight Championship undercard. The guy was very powerful, and I've just thought Cordina.
Do you reckon there'll be a rematch?
No, I think Cordina now should go up to lightweight, and I think Cacace now will look at the likes of the Zelfa Barretts, the Archie Sharps. I mean, maybe even perhaps a unification, who knows? But I think in terms of performance-wise, Cacace got it spot on. Cordina, in my opinion, fought the wrong fight, didn't box good, tried to trade with him when he shouldn't have, and he never recovered from the knockdown in round 3, and it was just one-way traffic after that. You give credit to Cordina.
That was a heavy knockdown.
It was a heavy knockdown.
Horrible knockdown. Yeah.
But you give credit to Cordina. He showed tremendous heart. He got up. He tried having a go, but the power of Cacace. And if you're someone like a Zelfa Barrett right now and Archie Sharp, you don't want to be on the end of one of those punches. And obviously, he spoke about a potential fight with Zelfa Barrett. Archie Sharp obviously called him out as well. That's a fight I'd love to see. Archie Sharp is, I think, 26-0 now. He's not had that defining career fight yet, and he's looked after by Roy Jones Jr. He's back with Frank Warren, so it's an easy fight to make. Cacace is with Queensbury and Frank Warren, so listen, if we can get why not put down the Fury Usyk 2 card if it happens, or the big Wembley card that apparently is going to be happening in September. But hats off to Anthony Cacace. Joe Cordina, in my opinion, definitely needs to go up in weight. I think he's just been at that weight for too long now. And he's a good fighter, Joe Cordina. And I think, I think this will be the making of him. I think he'd learn from this. I think he'd come back. And if he can go up to, to lightweight, becoming a world champion there, great fights as well at lightweight. You good fighters such as, Novachenko, Kambosos.
I mean,
don't forget.
From what I've heard as well, that he is struggling to make that weight as well. So maybe you're right.
Do you know what? I've never understood why fighters stay at their weight for so long. Just vacate the goddamn belt, for God's sakes.
I think it's just how strong you feel at that weight. The power that you can pack. That's my opinion. Anyway.
Fair enough. No, you're entitled to opinion. Me personally, once you're struggling to make the weight, move away from it and just go up in weight.
But the question is, would you be able to carry that power, punch resistance at a bigger weight with bigger guys who are more naturally at that weight, or who are more comfortable? So it's kind of making that that gamble kind of thing, or right kind of fights, right weight at the right time.
Well, this is it. This is why you go up in weight. You have a few tune-up fights. You get used to the weight. You get used to the power, and then you put yourself in the deep end. I mean, that's what boxing is all about. No one's telling him to go up and weight and challenge a Lomachenko or a Kambosos or any of the big fishes. Go up there, have a few fights, plant your feet, and then once you're fully ready, then you push for a world title, and then you start looking at the big boys in that division. But I just feel as if he's been at that weight for too long. But take nothing away from Anthony Cacacae. Over the moon, delighted for him. A very, very good performance and a very good win. And it's going to be interesting to see what he does next, because now he does hold two versions of the super featherweight world titles. So yeah, he is now officially the hunted, and there are some good British domestic clashes to make. So interesting to see what happens next. Obviously, we'll move on now. We'll discuss another fight on the card, which saw Jay Opetaia retain his world title against Mairis Briedis. Their second fight. Obviously, Opetaia won the first one, and Briedis was at the ring for 2 years. But listen, fair play to Opetaia, did what he had to do. Ron, is it fair to say that a statement wasn't really made and Opetaia didn't look his usual self, or were you expecting a bit more from Jay Opetaia on the night of the fight?
I mean, look, come on, think about it. On that, Mairis Briedis is probably second in that in the cruiserweights in the division. I would say
debatable.
I mean, look, he's only lost. You know, he's someone who's given was it Usyk a really good fight as well. So
yeah,
you've got to look at the level of opposition that you've got. You know, and you've got to give credit where it's due as well. I think Briedis, yes, I totally understand. He's been out the ring for 2 years, so it was a laboured performance from Opetaia, I would say. You know, there was not much happening in the fight. I think it's towards the latter end that Briedis kind of came back in. I think it probably will do him really good in the long run when he's going for other fights. You know, to have that someone who's going to give him a tough time. You know, Opetaia's last performance was it Zorro? Was it Zorro who did? Yeah, you know, he kind of put him out of his misery very early on. So, I mean, that cruiserweight division, there's some really good, exciting fights. We've got a lot of good British prospects that we hope that will be challenging the likes of Opetaia and later on this year, maybe. So, you know, we were expecting Opetaia to just blast through him, but I think we were kind of probably not giving Mairis Briedis his credit, you know, respect where it's due.
Well, I thought Briedis fought a good fight. For a guy that's been out for 2 years, I thought he performed quite well. Having said that, I'm just a bit disappointed with Jay Opetaia, but I still consider him the number one man in the division, and I do think looking at it in hindsight, it's probably a fight you struggled to get up for. I mean, you know, fighting a guy in Briedis that he's already beaten. He's been out the ring for 2 years. Beat Zorro on the Day of Reckoning card. Was it the Day of Reckoning card or no? Sorry, it was the it was when he beat the Joshua Walling card and the Wilder Parker card. So and got rid of him in 1 round. So I think the only two positives: he won the fight, number one. Number two, he 12 rounds in the bank. And there's obviously going to be a lot of talk about what he does next. And I saw Badu Jack tweet him saying, "Look, I've got the WBC belt, so there's a unification there." But I like the idea of him fighting the winner of Chris Smith and Richard Riakporhe.
Agreed. Yeah.
Again, I get a lot of stick when I say this, but I've got Riakporhe as the second best fighter in the division, and he's not even won a world champion. He's not even won a world title. And I would love to see Opetaia Riakporhe. Obviously, we know that fight was scheduled to happen. It went to purse bids, and for whatever reason, it never happened in the end. And no, Ron, we're not going to discuss Sky Sports boxer Ben Shalom's antics in terms of purse bids, but I do feel as if that's the fight that should be made before the end. And if we are going to get the big September Wembley card, or we're going to get the rematch in October between Fury and Usyk, I'd love to see Riakporhe fight Opetaia on one of those cards. But having said that, Bill Smith is no slouch. He's a world champion. He's going to probably be eyeing that fight up for himself, but they both got to take care of business. You've got some good fighters in that division. Also saw Sergey Kovalev come back. You know, just
is that a comeback or that is their retirement?
I think that's
official. Officially announced.
I think that's him done. You know, Robin Safar made it look too easy at times, and just think with what
Kovalev's 42 years of age. You know what I mean? He's been in. He's given us some great nights. He's been in with some good names. And every defeat he's had knockout. He's been knocked out. So maybe you need to think, come on, you know, I've had my moment in the sun. I was great whilst I was, you know, there. I hope they will take that on board and just make that decision that needs to be made.
I mean, look, you know, I thoroughly enjoyed this fight with Anthony Yard. I thought he put up a good performance against Canelo. I thought he was a bit hard done by against Andre Ward in the first fight. Second fight, obviously different story. He's been a credit to boxing. I just don't see the need for him to continue to carry on. I mean, I think it's just that urge, Ron. I think fighters that walk away from the sport, you know, that fire sort of relights. Probably think to themselves, "Oh, let me just see what's left in the gas tank," and it was pretty obvious that there wasn't much left. But listen, hats off to him. Went the distance. I do think it's time to sail off into the sunset. The performance of the night for me, Agit Kabayel. This was 24-0 versus 24-0. Kabayel versus Frank Sanchez. Rod, I'm going to let you into something. I'm pretty sure you know this. Did you know at the time of the pandemic, who Tyson Fury was meant to fight behind closed doors?
No, I mean, there's a lot of names like that.
No, Rod. Do you want to know who it was?
Who was it?
It was Agit Kabayel.
Wow.
They were in talks. It was going to happen, I believe, maybe in front of 500 fans. Because remember, Joshua fought Pulev in front of 1,000 fans in the pandemic. Agit Kabayel was on the verge of fighting Tyson Fury. Now, listen, on 2 occasions, this guy has fought on big cards, and he's delivered brilliant performances. He got rid of Makhmudov with ease, and he absolutely battered the shit out of Frank Sanchez. And I've got to say, Ron,
Frank Sanchez is highly rated as well. He's not a bum. He's you know, he's got a good amateur background as well. He's been talked up as the next best thing after Luis Ortiz, the Cuban boxers to come through. And this was a great matchup. I remember I was sitting down. Not many people know of these gonna be on the top 5, let's say. And Kabayel was making a noise. You know, he's making a lot of noise right now, and he's quietly going away about his business. And let's just say, if one of the belts becomes available, obviously IBF, I'm hearing, could Kabayel make a beeline for to fight for that belt?
Possibly, but there's a lot of
possibly. You know, I mean, obviously, yeah.
There is a lot of talks of a potential fight with Joseph Parker, but having said that, look, when you discuss I like it too. When you discuss the sort of who is the boogeyman of the division, who's going to be the guy that just sort of leaps in front of everybody just like that you don't expect it. I think we're looking at the man. I think Agit Kabayel is going to be a force to be reckoned with. And right now, I've got him in the top 10. I mean, he's beaten Derek Chisora, beat him for the European title many years ago. Now he's beaten Frank Sanchez, and he's beaten Makhmudov as well. And he's undefeated. He's 25-0. I mean, that was a WBC WBC title eliminator. We all know who holds the WBC title now, Oleksandr Usyk. But we're hoping we're going to get a rematch between him and Tyson Fury. Usyk also may have a mandatory obligation against Filip Hrgovic. Anthony Joshua will probably think he's another win away from challenging for a world title. So we've got to look at this in hindsight.
But Daniel Dubois as well.
Daniel Dubois.
Yeah.
What do we do with Kabayel? What do you do with Agit Kabayel right now? I like the idea of him fighting Joseph Parker. And
I like that name.
I like the idea of him fighting Daniel Dubois.
I like those 2 names. Really ring a bell for me. I like the look, because those kind of fights are leading up to a potential world title fight, or it could be for a world title fight if one of the belts becomes vacated for whatever reason. So, and he deserves it. You know, he's put in 2 performances where he wasn't fancied. You know, I mean, against Makhmudov, you know, the size of that guy, you know, he was like a wrecking machine, wasn't he? And he destroyed him. And he did a number on Frank Sanchez as well. So they're really good performances, and I am eager to see what comes of his career next. I mean, obviously he'll still be on these Saudi cards, which I'm excited about. So I hope people will be thinking about twice before getting in the ring with him. Joseph Parker, does he fancy that? Does he think it's high risk and low reward? There's that problem as well with Kabayel. So I'm gonna love to be kind of this fly in the wall when they're making his next matchup.
This is it. I mean, the high risk, low reward potential fight with Joseph Parker, but however, Joseph Parker's got to keep himself busy. He's on a good run right now, and he's not far off from challenging for a world title again. I mean, there's so many fighters. Just mentioned Hrgovic, Joshua Dubois, now so you've got Kabayel that are within touching distance of a world title. And listen, if Fury and Usyk do retire, which is what I think they will do next, those belts they become free, and it becomes an open division. And I think this is where the brother Turkey Ala Sheikh, the genius of boxing, has got to make a Super 8, Super 6 type of tournament and decide where those belts go to. But look, I think this guy's a very good fighter. I think there's something about him. He just doesn't seem phased. He's a quiet person. He goes on about his business. You don't really hear too much noise from him. It's going to be interesting to see what they do next with him. What impresses you mostly about him, Ron? I mean, we've seen him fight twice now on the big stage. We saw him fight against Chisora many years ago. What is it that you would watch out for if you were a future opponent of his?
I like his style, man. I think he fights fire with fire. I mean, he doesn't hold back, and he really knows when to put his foot on the pedal and go for that knockout. I mean, we've seen his last two fights. There's some great knockout. I didn't think that he was going to do that to Frank Sanchez. I was thinking Frank Sanchez is going to use his boxing skills, and just box his head off. But that wasn't the case. He bullied him. And that's someone no one's done before. And if you speak to anyone who knows boxing, they rate Frank Sanchez quite highly just for his boxing skills. So I just like his tenacity. I like his come forward style. So I'm keen. I've become a fan now of his, and I'm looking forward to his next fight.
Ron's a fanboy. Does it all? No, kidding. Good fighter. Very excited to see what they do next to him, and I want to see him active as much as possible throughout the rest of this year. Ron, before we bring the podcast to an end, we've got a big one this Saturday night. Leeds Direct Arena. Hatred on another level. Josh Taylor versus Jack Elgato Catterall. Obviously, we're going to do a podcast in terms of the review on the following week after the fight. Sorry, a few days after the fight. But listen, Ron, this is over 2 years in the making. We've watched the face-off. We've seen the build-up. I've spoken to Josh after he suffered an injury which postponed the original date. What do you think? I mean, who do you have winning this fight on Saturday night? Because this, for me, is right up there with Froch Groves, Joshua White, White Chisora. There's a lot of hatred involved in this. And this is 2 years in the making, 2 years of controversy.
Well, I mean, there was so much made about Josh Taylor moving up to 147 because he was struggling to make the 140 weight. I just hope he's making that 140 weight at the moment and comfortably, not struggling to make it. Otherwise, that's going to be a factor that we need to consider in this fight as well. There's obviously a lot of riding on it, a lot of animosity between the two. I saw the latest kind of face-off they had, and they can't keep their hands off each other at the moment. And I don't mean that in a good way. They just want to grab. I mean, there's always one grabbing the other one by the neck or something, or pushing and shoving. I'm just going to get the popcorn out when that fight actually happens. I was gutted it was postponed, and I was thinking, is it ever going to happen? And then obviously, Josh Taylor did what he did in the US, and I don't blame him as well, because he was in some really good fights, big fights with big names, like big American household names. So, but he's come back now. He's going to prove, those people that said, he's finished at that division, and Catterall won. So he's got a few demons to kind of face up to and kind of make some change a few people's opinions of him. Catterall, I was gutted he didn't win that last fight. So I hope he gets his moment. He deserved it. It was a shame that it was taken away by poor judging. See, this is what I mean by boxing. I let the person who's worked hard, who's earned that right to have their hand raised up, and unfortunately he didn't get it. So hopefully this Saturday when they used to face off again, will I don't know, will there be a trilogy? Let's see. I mean, the first fight was anything to go by. It was a great spectacle. So let's hope the second one is just lived up to expectations. And but I've got my prediction, but I'll save that prediction for when we have our chat about this later on in the week.
I mean, I just want to touch on something you just said there about Josh Taylor struggling to make weight. Listen, I do think that's kind of been his Achilles heel in the last few fights. But if he says he can make weight, he can make weight. I do believe that this guy has trained hard as ever. This camp he's had has probably been his most grueling camp because his career's on the line on Saturday night. And it's such a shame that when we talk about Josh Taylor, he's one defeat away from having to walk away from the sport. I mean, that obviously whether he loses and he does walk away, it's entirely up to him. But it saddens me that he's never been given the credit he deserves. The guy is our last undisputed British champion. I mean, and he never gets that credit that he deserves. And again, he's another fighter that I believe that stayed at the weight for too long. We saw that in the performance in the first fight against Catterall. We saw that in the fight against Teofimo Lopez. So I would like to see him win on Saturday night. However, I'm a big Jack Catterall fan. I like Jack Catterall. I like what Jamie Moore's done with him. I like the idea of him having Sam Jones as his manager now. And it's a fight built on hatred. And I do believe this fight does not see the final bell. I think there's going to be a knockout in the fight. I can't predict it though. I did say we're going to see the best Josh Taylor. But again, he suffered an eye injury in the build-up to this fight. So I don't know. I'm going to sit on the fence with this one. I just hope we see a good fight. And I hope we see some respect at the end because there is a lot of animosity there. And it's a big British fight. And yeah, I hope there's a bit of mutual respect at the end of the fight. One thing I am going to predict, I think it's going to be probably fight of the year. I think it's going to be a great fight. This is going to be a dog fight. You ain't going to get a boxing match between these two. These two genuinely want to tear each other's heads off. So let's wait and see what happens. It's going to be a great fight. We'd love to get the viewers' thoughts on what goes down on Saturday night in Leeds. Ron, anything else you want to add, mate?
No, I mean, we're in the next few weeks, we're spoiled for boxing. We've got some really good fights coming up. All the way up, in the next week, we've got obviously Catterall versus Taylor fight.
5v5.
What else is coming? That 5v5 card, which is still exciting, even though the main event's not still going ahead. Exactly. So I don't mind. I'm really excited about this. So I look forward to our further chats about these upcoming events and the post-fight reviews.
Likewise. Just in case anybody doesn't know, if you want to watch an absolute mauling, make sure you tune into the FA Cup final. What is it, next Saturday? I can't wait. I literally can't wait to what this is going to be like.
You never know.
No.
We've had our last two games, all right, you prick.
Listen. If Man United win that, honest to God.
All right. Let's make a bet. Go on. If United win that, go on. What would you do? Would you wear a United shirt for one plus? Well, there you go.
No. Hold on.
So you're not that confident, then?
If you listen, I'd rather walk in the streets with no shirt on. I'm never wearing a Man United shirt. It's just not happening. Simple as look. United win. I treat you to food wherever you want. Deal.
Fine.
G&A have got to do.
Same goes for me. Same goes the other way. All right.
Likewise, G&A have got some good deals going on right now, Ron. The Nuggets meal is only a few quid. I'm only joking. But listen, looking forward to it, though. I can't wait to wind up Man United fans when they lose. I've kept my mouth shut all season, and I've kept my mouth shut the last few weeks. But United fans are getting it after that game. But let's wait and see what happens. To the viewers out there, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you want to listen to this podcast on any of the audio platforms, again, links are below in the description. A massive shout out to our sponsors, the one and only Spartans Law. But also a massive shout out to you, Ron. It's been a privilege. You're only 22 podcasts away from hosting podcast 100. I hope you're ready, Ron.
I am. You gonna come up with a quick fire question?
Listen, I've been carrying the torch since 2018, so someone's gonna have to save your ass as always, aren't they?
Fine. All right.
Look, Sky Sports Boxing are calling, all right. So, you know, this journey has to come to an end one day.
It does.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in to podcast 78 of the Lights Out Boxing podcast.